I created my company originally just as a blog to talk about my experience of being a mom, a wife, and I realized I could help people beyond just having it be a blog. I could actually coach. I got my bachelor's in forensic psychology at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and I was going to go on to get my master's in clinical mental health counseling to become a therapist, specifically to work with those recovering from pornography addiction and betrayal trauma. However, when I was in my master's program, I realized that I didn't actually want to be a therapist and help couples. I much preferred coaching. Very different approaches. And for me, I realized that while therapy is very beneficial, it put me in a box. It was very limiting in the way I could help couples. And there also wasn't actually any education on pornography addiction in the texts in our classes. I actually taught my cohort about pornography addiction and betrayal trauma. So I realized it was just not where I wanted to go. And so I continued with my company, The Modern Mr. and Mrs., where I help couples recover from pornography addiction and betrayal trauma and other modern issues that plague couples these days, whether that's social media, AI. I mean, we live in a very different era than that of our grandparents. So we have different issues we need to address. There's 2 or 3 cornerstone posts. And by cornerstone, I mean, they're very long. They're very in-depth. It's kind of like a guide. And that's usually how people find me. One is actually like the guide to porn addiction and betrayal trauma recovery. That's probably the number one post that brings people to me. When I met my husband, I felt porn was cheating. I was in my own recovery from anorexia at the time. I was pretty upfront. This is who I am. This is what you're going to get. And this is like my boundaries. This is what I'm looking for in a relationship. He assured me that while porn had been a problem for him, he's more than happy to quit. He'd be like totally here with me. Unfortunately, that's not how addiction works. We had a total of 10 D days in our first year, with the 10th one being on our 1-year anniversary. And I basically was like, at this point, this is an addiction. You can't be in denial about it. If you want to move forward in a romantic relationship, you can go and get help. You can recover. And if not, we can part ways romantically, but stay friends. I was not going to continue to be in a relationship with someone who is in active addiction. It's not good for me. It's not good for him. That's just not what I wanted in my future. So I made a choice to stay with him because he chose recovery.
That's often what we see when people come to Ever Accountable to use our software, is that someone has set a boundary for them, whether it's a spiritual leader that says you need to deal with this. Very often it's a partner. There is a certain crew out there that are realizing they're miserable. They're lonely. They aren't connecting with women and they want to get married.
Let's first define what a secret is, because a lot of times people misconstrue privacy for secrecy. With secrecy, there is the absence of transparency. It is intentional withholding of information that is important to someone else. It's motivated by fear or shame, i.e., I'm a bad person if someone knows. Whereas privacy is the state of being free from observation and company. It is a space where you can contemplate and reflect your thoughts, your feelings, emotions, opinions. So a crude, short way I've seen privacy be described is it's your journal and in the bathroom. Like, that's very different. A lot of people say, oh, well, my phone is private. My computer's private. My tablet's private. It is actually the opposite of private, because first, with technology these days, there's trackers, and the big companies, they see all of that stuff, especially with AI coming out now, ChatGPT reading all of this and building a profile on you. Like, whatever you do on your phone is actually not private. So that actually is one of the first arguments between like the betrayed and the addicted, is like the addict's like, well, this is private, but it's not, especially if you're withholding information that's pertinent to the relationship. A lot of times the clients that I see, I would say 90% of them said, I told my partner early in the relationship that porn was not okay. And then obviously 10 years later, here we are, they're like, well, like, this is an issue. You knew it was an issue and you withheld. That's a secret. You intentionally withheld that information from me, knowing it would hurt me. I would say one of the things that is often misconstrued, and it's a fine line to walk, is like privacy in your life when you're early in recovery as a recovering addict. Because If you're going to build back trust, you have to be open. You have to be transparent. And because you have abused these technological devices or you've lied about certain behaviors you've done, it means you're going to have to be extra transparent in the beginning. Your partner is going to know the passcode on your phone. They're going to know the password to your email. There's got to be like this level of wall that comes down, which allows the connection, allows the safety, because the reality is when you're in active addiction and all the lies and the secrecy that you've done to your partner over however many years, you've not been a safe person. You've not been someone who's safe and healthy in a relationship, whether it's with yourself or in terms of the relationship unit with your partner. Recovery means you have to become a safe person.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes the reality of the romantic partner and say, did I ever really know you? Was there any truth to this relationship? Did you really love me? Or do you really prefer different body style? It destroys the truth in your heart and mind, and you're second guessing yourself all the time.
Yes. Your sense of reality is gone as a betrayed. On D-Day, the world you thought you knew is flipped on its head and it doesn't exist anymore. And it's shattering. It's a pain unlike anything else because you don't not only not trust your partner, the really deep, insidious part is you don't trust yourself anymore. So when you're in recovery, it's not just about learning how to trust the recovering addict again. It's also a huge journey of trusting yourself and your own intuition and knowing that if you feel like something's off, is this truly something's off? Or is it like a trauma response, and learning how to navigate that and work that skill as you're recovering? That's so important to do as a betrayed partner.
The flip side of that is if you love this person, you are going to have to acknowledge. How do you see that often play out for the couples you're coaching?
It depends on how open the recovering addict is to recovery. If they are very open, they're ready for this, then they're willing to understand that I was holding secrets. I'm not like protecting my privacy. I'm actually holding secrets. That's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for the relationship. I'm sure you've heard the saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. That is very true. If you're open to that, then you're going to have an easier time understanding, yeah, okay, she's got to know my passcode for a while. I've got to give all this information because they do have to do that to rebuild trust. It's much harder if the recovering person is not fully understanding the depth of what they've done. They're still in denial and they're still fighting the process. In that place, they struggle a little more with understanding like they were holding secrets and that was not beneficial to the relationship and that is actually hurting them.
That is where our accountability software can be really, really helpful, especially for the wife. She doesn't have to necessarily get his reports. Some just want their husband to be reporting to another trusted person, having that communication too. Maybe she can reach out to the accountability partner and say, how are things going? And trust that person to be honest with her so that she's not triggered. They're hitting some bumps. Recovery is rarely a straight line. From what I've learned, there probably will be bumps in the road and it takes a long time to rewire. If you know somebody is going to see your activity and call you out on it in a respectful and empowering way. This is not who you want to be. This isn't your goal. Let's rethink that. I know you used Ever Accountable for a number of years.
Yeah.
How did that work for you?
I appreciated it so much. I know my husband did too. What I really liked about Ever Accountable when we were using it is it's not just limited to inserting sexual terms. When you're recovering from any addiction, you are more at risk to what I call like addiction hop, which is cross addiction. My husband, he stopped searching porn and instead he just started searching cars. Because it was still that way to get dopamine because you're still scrolling. It's the same ritual. It's just a different like image, right? So I was able to put other like car words in there. So we were able to really navigate like, where are you in recovery? Doesn't matter if it's just porn. If you're also looking at cars, you're looking for the dopamine. So what's going on? What are we missing? Is it like your therapist isn't talking to you correctly? Are you not sharing with the therapist? Are you not using your tools that you're learning? Like what is going on? So for me, Ever Accountable was really like the smoke to the fire that you can't see. Like, oh, something's wrong. Let's figure it out and let's catch it before it goes farther. Now, I personally did get my husband's reports just because back in the day, so to speak, back in the day, it's been about 10 years. Back in the day, there was not a lot of help. There was not a lot of professionals in this industry, whether it's therapists or coaches, there were not a lot of people willing to come together in a community that's healthy. I stress that. There are plenty of communities out there that are not necessarily healthy because there's no professional leading them and setting some good, healthy community guidelines. So my husband didn't have someone in the beginning to get those reports. So I got them and I found it helpful for me. There was a time where I was like, I don't really want the reports anymore. We did eventually have a friend who could take on that role. Personally, I always recommend accountability software over blocking software because then it still leaves the ownership and onus on the person recovering. You, as the recovering addict, still have a choice on whether you're going to type those words in and search. You can choose to do that. Just know someone's going to know. Blocking software stops that whole process. And then it's like you don't really see how far you're going to fail and where you're going to stop yourself. It kind of interrupts that skill of learning how to like, oh no, I don't want to actually do this. Let me step away. I see clients from all over the world and they talk about how there's not a lot of resources or help out there. America is the leading forefront in this field. Like my UK clients, Australian clients, European clients, there's not a lot of therapists or coaches out there with training. There's just not a lot of help. Yes. So I've done a life, relationship, and recovery certification at the Addictions Academy. And Dr. Callie Estes, who owns the company, saw me and my co-coach, Chloe, and saw we were the only female coaches like really leading in this space in terms of working with recovering addicts. She was like, can you design a certification for coaches to be certified sexual recovery coaches? And we did. We created a certification. So we teach that now, whether it's live classes or through the self-study. But I did do those certifications with the Addictions Academy, which I loved. And one of the things I really appreciate is that they really emphasize ethics. No matter what certification you get at the Addictions Academy, you will always have an ethics component required. And they also do supervision, which I host some of those supervisions. You cannot enter a relationship willingly without knowing the information that's important. To fully consent to a relationship or to marriage, and marriage is a legal contract, you have to knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily enter that relationship. For those people in recovery who are married 10, 20, 30 years who have just discovered this, there's a huge feeling of, wow, I got tricked. Like I got duped. Like it was marriage under false pretense. So I want to just highlight that feeling and that dynamic that comes up because a lot of times when there is D-Day, the betrayed will say, this is not real. Our marriage is a lie. I will be honest, I've done surveys, I've done my own research. In all the years I've been a coach, there's not one betrayed partner who has answered the question, would you marry them if you had known? They've never said yes. I actually got married to my husband knowing about his addiction. But the people who married and then found out versus they're dating and finding out, it adds a whole other layer of betrayal.
So with that, there is hope. If you are willing to be respectful to the fact that the privacy and secrecy issue needs to be dealt with in your relationship, and it's on your shoulders. It's absolutely on the betrayer's shoulders to take responsibility and to take those steps and to be willing to give up some of that privacy in order to regain a trust and probably build a new relationship, basically.
I was going to say the relationship that you had is dead and gone. And that's part of the grieving process after D-Day. Like you really do have to grieve that what you had is not what you want because that was active addiction. So shifting your perspective to, well, we have a chance to build something new and something amazing and something honest and respectful and passionate. And you can recover if you want to recover. No one can force you. If you want it, you will do what you need to do to recover. Hire a therapist, get ever accountable, hire a coach, go to a 12-step meeting, join a community. You will do what you need to do because you will be a healthy, better person when you're in recovery. When you're in addiction, you're limited. You're not who you want to be. You're not your best version. In fact, you're most likely your worst version that's hurting others and you don't like that. So you can recover. There's hope.
Thank you. That's a great note to end on. And I really appreciate you sharing so openly. So if people were to search for your resources, do you just spell out your website for us?
Yes, it's the modernmrandmrs.com. The best way to get my most up-to-date content, more of my like uncensored thing, because the public blog has a lot, but if you really want to know my inner thoughts and get actual recovery opportunities, my newsletter feed is where you're going to get all that. So that's a great resource where every week you're going to get new stuff to work on. It takes a village to recover.